Your tears are not a sign of weak faith. They are the places where Jesus is closest to your heart. So today, author Brittany Lee Allen joins us to show how Jesus completely rewrites the lies we believe about our deep sorrow. Brittany, thank you for joining me. And I'm just going to ask you, why do we feel so much shame when we start to cry?
I think we've all had the experience where we start crying or we see somebody who's crying and they're talking and they apologize, right? Like we're like, I'm so sorry, I'm crying. Or there it really shows that we do have this kind of shame, like this inward shame about tears and about showing that and being open and vulnerable about that. So I think that a lot of it comes from things that have happened to us, ways we've been hurt or rejected, or maybe even lies that we're believing about what that means about us. Like when we are weak, or I'm sorry, we feel weak when we're crying and vulnerable. And so that can make us feel like people might think our faith is weak. So I think there can be a lot of different reasons that we would have shame.
Hmm. I know that a lot of times women just they don't want to share what's in their heart. To be afraid, somebody's going to share that information with someone else. So, or, again, we'll go back to, the shame of the cry. Maybe they'll think that they'll judge me.
Mhm.
That could be another thing. So, what do you think of that?
Yeah, I mean, I've been judged for my tears. That's a big part of my story, big reason I wrote the book. And so I think that that's very common in the church, and it can be really detrimental to the body because it causes people to isolate, because we don't want to get hurt again. And
Mhm.
so we feel we have to kind of just hide our tears and pretend like we're strong, and so that nobody will hurt us again.
Would you like to share your story with the audience?
I can share parts of it. Yeah. So my husband and I went through three miscarriages in a year before we had our two boys. And we did that, or we went through that in an environment, a church environment that was like had all of their theological ducks in a row, but lacked the orthopraxy. My husband and I experienced spiritual abuse. It was kind of centered around the way that I handled my miscarriages. So things were said to me like I was too downcast, and therefore showed that I wasn't mature as a Christian because I wasn't rejoicing always. I was told that I cried too much at church. A pastor literally looked me in the eye and said, "Every time I see you during worship, you're crying." And I was kind of like, why are you looking at me during worship? So anyway, I felt very judged in my tears. And the thing that really broke me down was he said, others have suffered worse and more than you and handled it better. And that was really hard for me to hear, just knowing my whole story. It felt like he dwindled all of that down into nothing. More to it. There was manipulation, and we were bullied from the pulpit. So there's a lot more that made it actual spiritual abuse rather than just church hurt. And so that really opened my eyes to a lot of lies that I was believing, a lot of lies that I was seeing in the church, not just my church that I was in at the time, but like on Instagram. And like I was just seeing the same kinds of things. I just saw recently a popular pastor had said depression is a sin. So like this is a big, like, yeah, it's out there and it's more common than I realized. So.
The pastor, isn't he supposed to have compassion? And I'm sorry you went through that with your former pastor who shames anyone from the pulpit, who hurts anybody from the pulpit because that's not what pastors are called to do.
But yeah, it's really important to have that compassion for your congregation. Yeah, I mean, I think from our own hearts, we can just believe lies like that God is not with us, that He doesn't care. Like, I know for me personally, when I was going through my miscarriages, there was a time where I really felt like God was just like cruel master that was just like wringing me out. And I didn't feel like he was a father to me. But that's not what scripture says. Like scripture says that he is a good shepherd and he's a father to us and he carries us through our suffering. And Jesus weeps with those who weep. And if we want to know the heart of God for us in our suffering, then we look at Jesus and we know he wept with those who wept and he had compassion on everyone that was around him. And so that's really important to think about and confront
Mhm.
those lies. We are so concerned about making sure everyone's rejoicing all the time because it says rejoice always, right? And I think that we can rejoice in the Lord even when we are broken, even when we are downcast, because that's different than happiness. Like joy is of the spirit. And we can have the joy of our salvation intact even when we're grieving. And I think we see that in the Man of Sorrows because when I think about Gethsemane, like he doesn't look particularly joyful there. Like he is broken. He is sweating blood. He's falling on his face in prayer over and over again and lament. And so I think that that kind of shows us that there is room for our tears. There's room for us to have times where we're men and women of sorrow, and yet that doesn't mean that our faith is deficient. Because if that's true, then what does that say about Jesus?
So how does Christ really turn our honest lament into like healing, hope?
I've really liked to think about lament as a form of worship, or it tells the story that God is God. When we bring him our laments, it is healing for us because it's a reminder that only he can really help us. We can go to others and ask for help, but only God can truly heal our hearts. And when we lament to him, it's telling that story. And I think it is healing. I think that it is the path we take to healing. I
And
think,
so why are our tears precious instead of disappointing to God?
yeah. I mean, there's a verse in Psalms about that, right? Like he he numbers our tears or something like that. He keeps them in his bottle. And so they are precious to him. I think it's because he's our father. When my kids are sad, and I'm not a perfect parent, I'm not like God, even in my sinful state, when my kids are broken over something, whether it's like a toy that was broken or something maybe even really minuscule in the grand scheme of things, like it hurts my heart. It breaks my heart. And I just want to hold them in that and just show them that I'm with them. And I think that that really shows how God is. He is our father and he does care about our grief, big and small.
Brittany, when you were in your darkest valley of loss, what did it feel like to finally give yourself permission to weep honestly before God?
I was very much for many of the years, like even in previous trials, and then the beginning of my miscarriages, I was one of those people that just prayed like, your will be done, and like didn't really pour my heart out. Like I was scared to ask for things, right? I just was very much like a flippant, no, your will be done. And I think we can kind of get in that habit of not being willing to pour our desires out before God and pour our hopes and our pain and all of those things. And there is something so special about developing that relationship and knowing that you can bring all of those things to the throne of grace. We can do that with boldness, and we'll find mercy and help in time of need. And so that's whether that's sin or sorrow, we can do that. And I think that that just, it's a way that we commune with God. And I think that's vital to our relationship with Him. So it certainly has just grown my love for the Lord and my trust in Him.
For the person watching right now who needs more of this compassionate truth, where can they find your book, Free to Weep?
Place. You can find it on Amazon or Moody Publishers, and really anywhere that you can buy books.
What is the one thing the viewer can do today to lean into Jesus?
Get in the Psalms and pray it back to Him. I think that that would be just a really beautiful way to commune with the Lord.